Yura, a man in his late 30s or early 40s who has spent half his life in Germany, returns to Ukraine, the land of his birth, on a quiet, private mission. In the trunk of his car lies a shovel, a seemingly mundane object that will later prove deeply symbolic. Though Yura is now a foreigner with a German driver's license, he grew up in the USSR, and certain habits, like keeping a shovel in the trunk, never left him. In the Soviet Union, especially in the cold and muddy seasons, that was simply common sense. As he travels along rural Ukrainian roads, he is inevitably stopped by traffic police. At first, they question his possession of the shovel and other practical items, like rubber boots and windshield washer fluid, though Yura can't tell whether they're genuinely suspicious or just mocking him. His sense of disconnect from this once familiar land grows. Despite their understanding nods, the officers use his status as a foreigner to steer the conversation toward a thinly veiled bribe. The speed sign was hidden behind a poplar branch at the bottom of a hill, a trap, really. Yura tries to argue his case but quickly realizes that in Ukraine, logic and fairness often take a backseat to custom and corruption. He gives in to the fine, deciding he doesn't want extra hassle. After handing over the money, the officer's demeanor softens dramatically. They chat with him, now all smiles, and helpfully point the way when he explains that he's trying to reach a place called Horetivka. But Horetivka, they inform him, isn't what it used to be. It's now a gated cottage community, inaccessible to outsiders. Disappointed but undeterred, Yura reveals his real destination, Camp Barn Swallow, a former Soviet pioneer camp he attended as a boy. Hearing the name stirs some recognition in the younger officer. The directions to the now abandoned camp are vague, but sufficient. Yura sets off again, navigating a dramatically transformed landscape. Where there were once sunflower fields and dark woods, there are now fences, construction sites, and sprawling dacha developments. The Ukraine he remembers from childhood is steadily vanishing, replaced by a speculative and chaotic future. The deeper he drives into rural roads, the more the city thins, the worse the roads get, and the louder the shovel in his trunk clangs with each pothole, a noisy reminder of his purpose. He finally reaches the place, marked by a barely legible dangling sign. The camp is in ruins. The gate is broken, the guardhouse is rotted, and the fence is gone. Still, Yura changes into his boots, takes the shovel, and walks in, stepping over the broken gate like a time traveler, re-entering his own past. His destination isn't a building or monument, but a spot he remembers as special, a place loaded with memory, friendship, and longing. The camp is eerily still, swallowed by weeds and silence. Yura sees cracked pavers and ruined buildings, yet in his mind's eye the sunlight still dances across the paths, and he walks as if guided by a younger self. At one intersection, by a collapsed flower bed, he pauses, convinced that this is the place. This was the spot, long ago, where he had drawn a chalk heart around a single letter, asterisk, asterisk, V, jock, asterisk. Back then, sneaking out at night, he had traced that secret love letter with shaking hands, his adolescent crush hidden in plain sight. The next morning, the other kids had seen it and misinterpreted the image, a heart mistaken for an apple, but none guessed the truth. Now, 2 decades later, Yura scratches a new V into the ground with a shard of brick and surrounds it again with a heart. It's crooked, just like before, but he feels a surge of connection, a preservation of something precious. Even if no one else remembers, he remembers. This act, this memory, this symbol, it matters. He walks deeper into the camp. Weeds choke the paths, but remnants of statues still stand, or more often, lie broken in the grass. These are the pioneer heroes, plaster effigies of Soviet child martyrs, now fragmented, like the country's ideology. Yura remembers some of their names, Valya Kodik, Murat Kazi, Zina Portnova, but much of their backstories elude him now. That knowledge, once memorized with fierce loyalty, has faded. He feels shame, not just for the ruin around him, but for his own forgetfulness, his failure to keep those youthful promises. Then, something strange. The camp's honor board, where once each summer's best campers were proudly displayed, is partly intact. Its glass is shattered, but the frame has preserved a few photographs and legible names. One caption reads, Session 3, August 1992, Achievements and Distinctions. Yura's heart stirs. That was the last year. Just 6 years after his own time there, the camp had already closed, another casualty of the post-Soviet collapse. As he ascends the steps into the central square, the symbolic heart of the camp, his emotions swell. The flagpole still stands tall, the only untouched structure, but the square is otherwise a disaster zone. There, amid the rubble, lies the camp statue of Zina Portnova, beheaded. Her torso is toppled, her head lies nearby. Yura gently props the pieces together again. It's the least he can do for a girl who died for her country. Even if she was only a plaster replica, the disrespect of her destruction pains him. She had died for something she believed in. Who, now, even remembers? That's when Yura understands the full gravity of what he's lost. Not just youth, not just innocence, but continuity. This place, which once held so much meaning, is not only abandoned, but forgotten. The worst part isn't that history has changed, but that it has been erased. And he, who had promised to remember, had let that happen. He hadn't come back sooner. He hadn't searched for V, his closest friend, perhaps even the first person he had truly loved. He had let life distract him, let comfort and distance grow into silence. That last summer, Yara remembers, had been the most intense. His friendship with V had transcended the childish camaraderie of other camp years. Something unspoken had bloomed between them, never declared outright but always present. Their laughter, shared secrets, and tentative gestures, everything pointed to a bond stronger than friendship, though at that age and in that country he hadn't had the words. Then the summer ended. Verses left, and Yura never saw him again. Now, in the middle of a ruined square, surrounded by weeds and silent pedestals, Yura is overwhelmed by grief and longing, not only for V, but for that version of himself who believed that feelings could be immortal, that love could be preserved by memory alone. The physical state of the camp mirrors his emotional reality. Where there was once hope and color, only fragments remain. And yet, standing before the propped-up statue, shovel in hand, Yura is also filled with quiet determination. His adult cynicism softens. He may have forgotten for a time, but he's here now. He has returned, not just to a place, but to a promise. He does not know if he will ever find V, or even what happened to him. But this journey is not about resolution. It is about remembrance. The act of returning, of marking the spot with a heart and a name, is an act of reclamation. A broken statue, a scratched letter, a fading photograph, these are not enough to rebuild the past, but they are enough to honor it. As Yura stands beneath the lone flagpole, the drizzle soaking his clothes, he feels not closure but continuity. He is not the same boy who once rode in singing buses to summer camp. But that boy still lives within him, in memory, in gesture, in the quiet drawing of a crooked heart on broken pavement. The past may be irretrievable, but it is not meaningless. And so, shovel over his shoulder, Yura walks into the ruins of Camp Barn Swallow with the tenderness of someone burying something sacred, not to forget, but to preserve.